Disclaimer: this story contains mature themes intended for adult viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. His eyes caught mine before his hands did. The way he leaned against the kitchen counter, a lazy smile tugging at his lips, made my heart stumble just as much as the glass pitcher in my hand. I was pouring milk, simple, ordinary, but the weight of his stare made the moment anything but. The kitchen lights glowed softly around us, brushing warmth across the tiled floor, while the hum of the refrigerator filled the silence we both pretended not to notice. He came closer, slow, certain, as if he knew I wasn't going anywhere. My breath shifted when his hand brushed the small of my back, lingering just long enough to send a spark rushing up my spine. His fingers toyed with the edge of my skirt, a teasing gesture that felt both playful and daring. I turned my head slightly, catching his gaze, mischief and longing twined together in those familiar brown eyes. "Really? Here?" I whispered, but even to my own ears, my voice carried more thrill than protest. He chuckled, low and smooth, the kind of sound that curled around me like a secret. "One time," he murmured, leaning in so close that his breath warmed the side of my neck. His words carried the weight of a promise, and the air between us shifted instantly, thicker, charged, like something waiting to break open. The milk pitcher trembled slightly in my hand, and I swallowed hard, torn between finishing what I started and giving in to the moment pressing against me. His hand slid more firmly now, bolder, pulling me closer while I tried to steady both the glass and my heartbeat. I wanted to say something clever, to push him away with words I didn't mean, but the truth was there, alive in my flushed cheeks, in the way my lips parted before I could stop them. The milk rose in the glass, almost spilling over, and so did the tension between us. And then, he moved. The sudden pull, the way my skirt slipped away, the press of his chest against my back, it all came at once, and the glass nearly fell from my hand. My pulse thundered, caught between the warmth of his body and the cold rush of milk threatening to spill. I gasped, halfway between laughter and surrender, when everything tipped at once. And that's where our story begins. The glass tipped just enough for the milk to splash against my hand, a cool contrast to the heat blooming along my skin. His laughter, quiet and low, curled at my ear like a confession. "See? You lose control the second I touch you," he teased, his fingers tracing a slow circle at my waist. I tried to steady the glass on the counter, but his closeness made it nearly impossible. "Or maybe," I whispered, glancing back at him, "you just like making a mess." My smile gave me away, half defiance, half surrender. He leaned closer, brushing his lips against the curve of my shoulder without fully kissing me, the restraint in that gesture more dangerous than any touch. "A little mess isn't always bad," he murmured, voice warm with double meaning. His hand slid lower, tugging at me just enough that I could feel his intent but not yet see it through. I shivered, though the room was far from cold. The milk dripped slowly down the counter, a silent witness to the tension between us. He caught a drop with his fingertip, then lifted it as if weighing whether to taste it. The look in his eyes wasn't just desire, it was something unspoken, like he was holding back more than just passion. "You're hiding something," I said quietly, my words surprising even me. His stillness gave him away, that pause where his playful facade faltered for only a moment. "What makes you think that?" His tone was light, but his hand tightened around me, anchoring me to him. "Because I know you," I whispered back. The milk, the laughter, the teasing, all of it balanced on the edge of something larger, something we hadn't said aloud. His secrets pressed against my silence just as much as his body pressed against mine. He bent down, lips brushing my ear. "Then maybe you'll have to make me tell," he said, his words both challenge and invitation. The playful spark returned to his eyes, but I caught the flicker beneath it, hesitation, fear, something he wasn't ready to release. I laughed softly, though my chest ached with curiosity. "Careful. You might spill more than milk tonight." His grip on me deepened, his lips finally brushing against my skin, but just as I leaned into it, he stopped, deliberately, purposefully, leaving me suspended between desire and unanswered questions. The kitchen hummed quietly, but between us, the silence roared. And I knew, whatever secret he carried was about to break open. The milk had already begun to run in little rivers across the counter, but neither of us moved to clean it. His body pressed against mine, anchoring me there, his warmth almost enough to drown out the strange distance I suddenly felt in him. The way his lips hovered near my neck, then pulled back, as though he were fighting himself, it wasn't like him. "You're thinking too much," I said softly, trying to mask the tremor in my voice with a teasing smile. "Usually, you'd never hesitate." He laughed, but it came out tighter than before, strained. "Maybe I'm wondering if you'd still want me, if you knew everything." That pulled me back, sharper than his touch. My breath caught, not from the intimacy but from the edge in his tone. I turned my head, forcing him to meet my eyes. "What does that mean?" He leaned in, kissing me finally, slow, claiming, but even in that kiss, I felt it, hesitation. His hands slid lower, daring, making my body arch against him, but his eyes betrayed something else. Something darker. When he pulled back, I whispered against his lips, "Is there someone else?" The words escaped before I could stop them. His jaw clenched, and for a moment, I wished I hadn't asked. Then he smiled, crooked, dangerous. "Maybe I should be the one asking you that." The accusation cut through me, though his hands didn't let go. They gripped tighter, pulling me flush against him, as if he couldn't decide whether to punish me or lose me. The intimacy deepened, but so did the sting of doubt. Every brush of his mouth against my skin now carried an edge, as though he wanted proof, as though he was searching for an answer in the way I responded to him. "Why would you say that?" My voice cracked with equal parts fear and desire. He didn't answer right away. Instead, his lips found my shoulder, my collarbone, slow but deliberate, as though he were testing me, waiting for me to break. Then he whispered, "Because I've seen the way you look at him." I froze. Milk dripping onto the floor was the only sound between us, echoing the sudden fracture of trust. His body still held me, his touch still made my knees weak, but inside, the ground shifted. And in that fragile silence, I knew, whatever secret he carried, and whatever suspicion he nursed about me, neither of us was ready to face it yet. His words still echoed, "The way you look at him," as if they'd been carved into the air between us. My throat tightened, but before I could respond, his lips pressed harder against my skin, demanding, silencing. His hands slid along my hips, firm and unyielding, tugging me closer until the edge of the counter pressed against my thighs. The spilled milk pooled beneath us, forgotten, a cold reminder against the heat spiraling through my body. "Say it," he whispered against my neck, his breath hot, uneven. "Tell me I'm wrong." His fingers gripped the fabric of my top, pulling just enough to bear the curve of my shoulder. I wanted to answer, to argue, to ease the storm building in him. But when I turned to face him, the way he looked at me stole every word. Jealousy burned in his eyes, but beneath it was fear, fear of losing me, fear of something he couldn't name. That mix drew me in as much as it pushed me away. "You're not wrong," I finally said, though my voice trembled with more than one meaning. His breath hitched, and I saw his jaw tighten, the jealousy flaring again. But before anger could take hold, his mouth claimed mine with a force that left me gasping, clutching at his shirt as if to anchor myself. The kiss deepened, urgent, his hands slipping beneath the hem of my skirt, fingertips brushing against my skin in a way that left me trembling. The intimacy built not just from touch but from everything unsaid, his suspicion, my silence, the thin line between devotion and betrayal. I whispered against his lips, "Someone could walk in." It was half a warning, half a dare. "Let them," he growled softly, his voice laced with hunger and defiance. "I want them to see you're mine." My heart raced faster, torn between fear of being caught and the intoxicating thrill of his possession. Each brush of his hands grew bolder, each kiss deeper, until the air around us felt heavy, electric, impossible to breathe. And then, he stopped. His forehead pressed to mine, his breath ragged. "Tell me the truth," he whispered, raw and almost broken. "Did you want him?" My lips parted, the words trapped in my throat. His eyes searched mine with a desperate fire, the room spinning with equal parts desire and accusation. My answer, whatever it was, would shatter everything. And in that suspended moment, just before I spoke, the sound of footsteps echoed down the hall. The sound of footsteps froze us both, our breaths colliding in the narrow space between our lips. His hand tightened around my thigh as if he could hold the moment still, keep it from spilling into something we couldn't take back. I clutched at his shirt, pulse racing with equal parts desire and fear. Whoever was in the hallway was coming closer, and for a heartbeat, I wondered if this was how our secret would break open, milk on the counter, clothes disheveled, emotions raw and exposed. But then the footsteps faded, retreating back into silence, leaving only the hum of the fridge and the thundering of my heart. He exhaled sharply, almost laughing with relief, though his grip didn't soften. If anything, he pulled me closer, as though the risk had ignited something even hotter inside him. "See," he whispered against my lips, his voice rough, trembling with want. "You like the danger." "Maybe I do," I admitted, my voice catching as his hand slid higher, bolder now, every brush of his fingers making my body arch toward him. My skirt was already gathered against his hand, and when his thigh pressed firmly between mine, I gasped, clinging to him harder. But underneath the fire, the unresolved tension lingered. I could feel it in the way he kissed me, hungry but searching, as though every sigh, every gasp from me was evidence he was desperate to claim. His jealousy hadn't faded, it had fused with his passion, and the mix was intoxicating. "You're mine," he whispered fiercely, his forehead pressed against mine, breath hot and ragged. "No matter what you've thought, no matter who you've looked at." I shivered at his words, both frightened and thrilled. I wanted to reassure him, to soothe the ache I saw in his eyes, but a dangerous part of me also wanted to see how far he would go, how much of himself he would reveal. "Then prove it," I murmured, a challenge laced in my tone. His mouth crushed against mine again, deeper, rougher. My back hit the counter edge, cold against my skin where my top had slipped. His hands roamed with urgency, every touch meant to erase doubt, to stake his claim. The milk on the counter dripped to the floor in slow, steady drops, echoing the rhythm of our bodies pressed together. And then, another sound cut through the haze. Not footsteps this time. A voice. "Maya?" My entire body went rigid. My name, spoken by someone who should not have been here. He froze too, eyes wide, his chest heaving against mine. The voice came again, closer, hesitant but real. "Maya, are you awake?" It wasn't a neighbor. It wasn't a stranger. It was a voice I knew too well, soft, familiar, threaded with something that made my stomach drop. His gaze locked onto mine, fierce and questioning. "Who is that?" he whispered, voice hoarse, every nerve in him pulled taut. The secret I'd buried pressed at my lips, begging to be released. And as the voice grew closer, calling my name again, I knew I couldn't keep both men in the dark much longer. "Maya?" The voice drifted closer, tugging me out of his arms for a heartbeat. My chest heaved, torn between the pull of the man holding me and the shadow waiting in the hallway. His grip didn't loosen, if anything, his hand pressed harder at my waist, as if he feared I'd slip away. "Who is it?" he whispered, his breath hot, ragged. His jealousy flared again, sharper now, mixed with something like panic. I swallowed hard. My words died on my tongue as the figure stepped into the dim light. It was his brother. The room tilted, everything inside me shattering into heat and fear at once. His brother's eyes darted from me, flushed and trembling against the counter, to him, holding me with possessive desperation. Silence stretched, thick and suffocating. "What's going on here?" His brother's voice was low, almost broken, but beneath it pulsed something more dangerous: desire, suspicion, longing he hadn't meant to reveal. The man at my waist turned back to me, his jaw tight, his body pressed harder against mine, as if to claim me in front of the intruder. "Tell him," he demanded, eyes burning into mine. "Tell him you're mine." My lips parted, my body aching with the closeness, the storm of his jealousy, the undeniable fire between us. My hands slid up his chest, clutching at him, not just to soothe but to ground myself. The air around us ignited as his mouth found mine again, urgent, desperate. I kissed him back with everything I had: need, love, defiance, all spilling into that one moment. The milk had dried sticky on my skin, the counter cold beneath me, but none of it mattered. Only the press of his body, the strength of his arms, the rawness of the way he whispered against my lips, "I won't lose you." Not to him. Not to anyone. His brother's breath caught audibly in the doorway. That sound, half hurt, half something else, sent a ripple through me. My heart raced faster, because in his eyes I saw it clearly now: he wanted me too. The twist cut deep, splitting the night open. Two brothers. One secret. My body still trembling from passion, my heart drowning in conflict, I realized the climax of this night wasn't just about milk spilled or jealousy confessed, it was about the choice that could tear everything apart. And in that charged silence, with both of them staring at me, I whispered the one thing neither expected. "I don't know if I can choose." His brother's shadow lingered in the doorway, heavy and unspoken. The tension in the room was unbearable, thick enough to choke on. My husband's hand tightened around me, his chest heaving against mine. For a heartbeat, I thought he might explode, jealousy, passion, anger all crashing together. But instead, he pulled back just enough to look at me, his eyes raw, stripped of all the teasing and fire. "I don't care what he feels," he whispered, voice trembling. "What matters is what we are, what we've built." Those words pierced deeper than any accusation. My chest ached as I reached up, cupping his face with trembling hands. "It's you," I said, tears pressing at the corners of my eyes. "It's always been you." Even when doubt crept in, even when I was lost in the what-ifs, my heart never left yours. The crack in his gaze softened, his forehead pressing against mine. The fight drained from him, replaced by something far more powerful: relief. His arms wrapped around me, pulling me in as if he could shield me from everything outside that moment. I melted into him, our lips meeting again, slower this time, not desperate but certain, sealing the truth between us. His brother shifted in the background, his presence sharp as glass, but we didn't look. For once, the outside world didn't matter. All that mattered was the warmth of his body, the steadiness of his heartbeat against mine, the way his hand brushed over me not to claim, but to cherish. The spilled milk on the counter had dried sticky and cold, a reminder of chaos and mistakes, but in his arms, everything felt clean again. Whole. I realized then that intimacy wasn't about danger or jealousy or who might walk in, it was about trust, about choosing each other even when the world tried to wedge its way between us. We stayed wrapped together in that quiet glow, our laughter returning in soft bursts, our whispers gentle promises instead of accusations. The storm had passed, and in its wake, love felt fiercer, stronger, unshakable. When we finally pulled back, his smile was small but certain. "Let's not waste any more time doubting." I nodded, brushing my lips against his once more. No more secrets. Just us. And that was enough.